Okay guys, so you want to learn Fusion 360? Well, you've come to the right place. My name is Visceral3D, and recently I made a series on YouTube teaching Fusion 360 to new CAD students and 3D modelers. I'm a teacher by trade, but I did it in Swedish, so I thought I would make a English series as well. So what I'm making different about this series is that I teach you Fusion 360 from the basics up. I don't want you guys to get stuck in like tutorial hell, where you see a cool video on how to make something and you want to make it and you follow the tutorial, and for your next project you don't really know how to start. So we're going to back that up and start with the basics and really go through the basics so you get a firm grasp of Fusion 360. So I assume you have downloaded your software, and this is what you will be greeted by. I'm gonna throw out some technical terms that is obvious to most 3D modelers out there, but quickly go through them so you get a grasp of what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. So the first thing you see here is this grid. This is actually a coordinate system. You can think of it as a coordinate system. You see the red line here. That's actually an axis in the coordinate system. It's the x-axis, and it's usually marked by red in most 3D software. Then you have the green axis over here. That's the y-coordinate. And then there's a coordinate or an axis that you don't really see yet. And it's actually why we're working in 3D. It's the z-axis, and it points upwards from this kind of floor-like thing. So I just want you to keep these coordinates in mind. If you ever forget your coordinates, we have this wonderful little view cube over here that is actually showing us our coordinates, which way our view is pointing. I have another word for view. I think of this whole thing as a camera that is looking from my monitor into the 3D world. So I'm going to be calling the view our camera. And if I rotate my view, I usually say I rotate my camera, or I zoom in my camera. Zoom out my camera and pan my camera like this. So let's go with the controls for actually doing that. And I want you to really experiment alongside with me. Most people learn by doing and not seeing, so open up Fusion 360 and start a new project. It will take like a couple of minutes or so to get that running, and actually follow along with these steps. That would help a lot. If you're wondering what's squeaking, it's my squeaky chair. Okay, so how do you pan the camera? How do you zoom the camera? And how do you move in 3D space? Well, everything is bound to the middle mouse button, or some alternative to the middle mouse button. So if you press down the middle mouse button, it's usually on the scroll wheel. I press that down and I move the mouse around. I can pan my camera in 3D space. This is actually great for having a look around and well, panning to different parts of your model. If I use the scroll wheel, I zoom in and out, like so. And now I'm going to use the shift key to orbit around with my camera. And I use the shift key, press down, and then I use the same middle mouse button to turn around my camera. This might look weird to you if the video compression is bad, but I think you will get it when you try it out. And really do. Really try these commands. If you're not comfortable for any reason, there are always different ways to navigate in Fusion 360. I talked about this view cube earlier, and it's got these letterings, top, right, and you can see I hover different parts of it. Well, we can press our left mouse button and actually drag around this view cube to orbit. Like so. Or we can press the top text right here. We can easily go to the top orthographic view. And by orthographic, I mean there's no perspective in that view. So if we want to rotate out of this, we just rotate our camera and we get our perspective back. Let's say, for instance, you're lost in 3D view. Maybe you've zoomed in too much or orbited your camera in a strange way like this, and we have no idea what's going on here. Everything looks the same but on the grid, but this view cube is totally distorted, right? We don't know where we are. Well, there's an easy fix for that. When I hover over this view cube, you can see this little house icon. This is the quick command to get back to our home view. So it will like reset the entire view. If we press this one, we snap back to our default home view. It's a great way to get back to things. Over here, you see our toolbar. It's filled with a lot of icons, and it's the main toolbar that we're going to be using going forward. But at this moment, I want you to mostly ignore this part. We're just going to be using two different tools here, the Create Sketch and the Extrude tool. The rest of them are irrelevant for the time being. Below the toolbar here, you can see the browser window. This browser window contains everything in our scene, and right now it's pretty empty. It just includes this. It says unsaved here, and that's our document name. For future reference, we can call this our root component. When you start a new document, you will always get a new component where you put everything inside of. There are some document settings here. If you want to change the default length from millimeters to, let's say, inches, I'm going to be using millimeters for this since I'm European, if you can't tell by the accent. And we got some named views. We can quickly go to the top view by double-clicking this, or the front view by double-clicking this. I'm going to press the home button now to get back to our home view. Then there's this folder, and it's pretty interesting. The folder is called Origin and contains very valuable elements that we can use when we create our 3D models. For the time being, this is hidden. And Fusion will try to help us out and show and hide stuff that we're gonna need in the moment. So right now, when we don't have any tools selected, everything is hidden. But when you see, we can show these helpers by pressing this little eye icon. The O is the origin point. You can think of this as the 0, 0, 0 coordinate in our coordinate system. It's the entire middle of the scene, of the world you're building. The origin point is a great start for any future models, so you know everything is centered and aligned. The next is our trusty x-axis. This is our y-axis. We already talked about this. They are aligned to the grid and the big green axis line here. So we're gonna be using these later, but right now we're not gonna use the axis, so we keep them hidden. These ones are pretty interesting. In fact, I'm gonna be showing these. Let's see here. These are our planes, the XY plane, the Z plane, and the YC plane. These are used when we're starting to sketch. Many of my students are often confused about this, so I take a moment to explain this thoroughly about the planes. You can think of the planes as a piece of paper. The pieces of paper can be aligned in different kinds of ways. So you see here, I highlight the XY plane right here. So imagine this being a piece of paper on our desk. So we are looking down at our desk and writing and drawing on the piece of paper on our desk. Now you can rotate that to, let's see, this position. So we stand it up on its edge, and this way you can draw in a different direction. And this one is in the other direction, so you draw in the depth of the scene. Okay, so now we can close this up. I'm gonna be showing you rather than telling you later what these actually planes are doing. So don't worry about not getting it right away. So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna explore this tool line. And as I said before, only these two buttons matter to you right now, the Create Sketch and the Extrude. So the Create Sketch is our main design tool. It creates a sketch for us that we can draw shapes in 2D, and then we can use the Extrude tool to pull these out into 3D. They give a little explanation if you hover over them for long enough, but I think we'll just dive into them straight away. So we'll press the Create Sketch button, and now you can see we're presented by choice. So Fusion wants us to decide in what direction do we want this sketch. So they unhid the different planes that we get to choose from. And you see when we move our mouse over any of these planes, they become highlighted. And the grid change, that's what confuses many people. The grid changes depending on what plane you choose. So for the time being, I'm gonna use this plane, the XY plane. So we're putting a piece of paper down on your desk and you're looking down at the sketch. You're gonna see the camera move when we select this with the left mouse button, like so. And we go into sketch mode. One thing to note here about sketch mode is that our tools has been replaced. Our camera position has shifted. So right now, you see in the view cube, our camera is actually pointing down in the top direction. So these tools right here, they are your sketch tools. So we can start with a line. And we activate the tool by clicking once on the tool. And then you see our little crosshair here. It means we're inside a tool and we're gonna place the first point of our line. So you don't have to click and drag for this. You just have to press once. And now I'm just using my mouse here. I'm not holding down left button or anything, so I'm pressing once for the start point and once for the end point. Now I'm just gonna press escape to go out of that tool. The line tool is special that way. It kind of wants us to continue drawing a line. So now we have a beautiful line. We can still pan our camera, look around at our line, and we can actually grab our line like so with the left mouse button. We can grab the points of our line and move them around like so. And we can actually continue drawing on our shape with the line tool again. And I'm going to show you something that Fusion does that is kind of different to other CAD modeling software. When I hover over this line with the line tool selected, you can see these little blue icons. You see a little X there by my mouse pointer. This means that Fusion is trying to make a constraint for us, or a rule on how this line will behave. So the X rule means that our starting point will begin at this line. I'm going to show you by just drawing another line, something like this. I'm going to press escape to go out of that tool, so you see nothing on my mouse. So if I change this line right now, you see that the start point of this second line is always locked here. And you can see that also that it's a rule or a constraint driving this line when I'm hovering over it, and you see this little icon here. So I can change this line however I want. You see we're locked to that line. If you haven't been paying attention, you might have seen other little blue symbols as well showing up while I'm moving this line. I'm actually gonna delete these by selecting them with the left mouse button, pressing delete and delete. So if I just create a straight line here, you can see a little symbol representing a horizontal constraint. It means our line will always be perfectly straight horizontally. So to not get this rule, I can press down Control and get precise placement of this line. But if I want Fusion to help me out, I can release Control and just press End here. So now I have this line with a little horizontal constraint on it. This line will always stay horizontal. If I take the point, move it, line will always be horizontal. Okay, so those are the basic constraints that you will be working with in the beginning. You can add constraints manually, but I'll save that for a later lesson. I think this will be all for this lesson, but first we're gonna just create something fun that you'll get to use the extrude tool with. So I'll make this circle with the center diameter circle, and I'm gonna be pressing this. The start point of this circle will be in the origin. And you see this little blue square surrounding the origin point. That means the start point is locked to the origin. So I give it one left mouse press, and then it needs to know how big the circle is going to be. So I'm going to be saying maybe this big. I'm just going to press escape to escape this tool. And now we can press finish sketch. Now we got a sketch object. You see something new here. In our browser window, we see a new folder called sketches. This is where your sketch will end up, and you can change the sketch later on. That's the power of CAD modeling software, that you can always go back and change things. It's actually one of the main features why we use CAD modeling software. Nothing is ever constant. We can always go back and change our measurements, our designs, and everything after this will be calculated again. So what am I talking about? Let's just show you. So we just have this 2D drawing of a circle. I'm going to use the extrude tool to extrude this out. And here Fusion will help you out in a couple of different ways. First of all, it selects the shape that it thinks you want to extrude. Yeah, that's the best way I can phrase it. So since we don't have any other objects in this scene, it's going to assume that you want to extrude this circle shape. You can see that over here in the extrude window, profiles, one selected. If we wanted to deselect this one and do it manually, we can press this little X button, and then you see this default select. It's asking for what shape should we extrude. So I can hover over my circle and press it again. Now I'm gonna drag out the shape and make my amazing 3D cylinder, like so. And this will be your first CAD model ever. It's not very beautiful, but it's a start. And I'll see you again in the next episode where I go over your exercise 1, actually. Take care.